Welcome to Tea Time with Talent Acquisition, the podcast aimed at fostering knowledge and sharing stories within the vibrant talent acquisition community. There is no surefire way to accomplish anything in life, but with each conversation, we aim to delve into diverse topics and present fresh perspectives to empower you, our fellow colleague, on your journey to success. I'm your host, Eden, and for the next hour or so, I'll be joined by a seasoned recruiter boasting more than a decade of professional experience, supporting a wide variety of customers for a multitude of positions. Now the global head of talent acquisition, a prominent player in the wellness industry, this individual is eager to impart their wisdom gained from first-hand experience in nurturing and sustaining high-performing recruitment teams. I'm thrilled to the opportunity to collaborate with him, and I've also had the privilege of working with him briefly in the past. So when you're ready, grab your favorite tea or coffee if you prefer, and join me in welcoming today's guest, the Global Talent Acquisition Manager for the team at Lovehoney, Jaime Fernandez. So thank you so much for joining me on today.
No problem. My pleasure, Eden. Thank you for having me here today.
Nice. Well, look, from every other episode we've always recorded, everyone gets the same question, and you're not going to get out of it either. So let's kick it off. Why are we working in talent acquisition?
I studied social work, and it was not for me. Then I moved into psychology, and becoming a chartered psychologist in Spain is not particularly easy. There's not so much space to do. So it picked up my interest pretty quickly to move into business psychology. I started moving to that path, and I've been living abroad for many years now, and if you want to be into human resources in a different country, usually you have to be there or grow there or something of the kind. So being in talent acquisition was a natural move for me, and it's actually the part that I like the most, because it's very easy to see the impact in the business, and it's very easy to see the turn into figures of that area. So yeah, that's why I became a specialist in this area. And some funny story, some years ago I got an interview for a job in Kraft Heinz, the one of the ketchup, and the person who was interviewing me asked me what I want to be in 5 years, and I said, I want to have your job. And he was head of talent acquisition. So that's what I did. 4 years and a half later, I became
There we go.
one.
I mean, you've been head of TA for a little bit longer now, right? So you did it before the 4.5 year mark for sure. But
kinda. It was almost there. Yeah.
I like the fact that you're saying that obviously it kind of took a detour. Wasn't the intention to get into this, but that mix between psychology and kind of seeing the impact that you're doing. I think I think definitely recruitment in general, internal, external, that's definitely one of the biggest factors. I think a lot of people step into this field is that you can see firsthand the work you do, and you can really see the results quite quickly, really, as well.
Yeah. I don't know about in other countries, but in Spain it becomes an area of work that you are very data driven. You have to do a lot of analytics, and you have to study a lot of mathematics. That's on that side. Then on the other side, when you study psychology, you learn pretty quickly how to do interviews and how to interact with people. So yeah, you just become a natural for that. So that two things together, it makes you pretty good from the beginning. Obviously, when you leave university, you have a lot of high hopes about doing psychometrics and things like that, which sometimes happen, sometimes don't. But yeah,
depends what team you join, right?
Yeah, it depends on the company, depends on the culture, and you also have to take it with a pinch of salt about how hard you are and how the results are coming and how they are taken. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Well, obviously, I mentioned in the intro about your experience building, but also maintaining high performance teams, and that's obviously going to be the core element of what we're going to focus on today. But before we kind of get into the meat of what your knowledge can kind of share, when I say a high performing team, especially in the world of recruitment, what do we actually mean by that?
Well, it's a team or a series of teams that they have very high targets, and they have to provide them in a very short time frame. That's for me high performing. It has to be pretty well aligned, and the rule set of within they move, it has to be pretty clear. So that's how they can move. But yeah, pretty much that. Like very high targets, very short time. That's how you can define a high performing team
So,
from my
so
point of view.
consistent delivery based on the company's
Yeah,
expectation, but in as you say, the short
yes.
period of time. Why is that important to be able to deliver quickly?
Well, probably it's not happening anymore, but some years ago we had a lot of hyper growth companies. Money was flowing, and there were many startups, and they have to make themselves pretty fast within a space in their domain. So that's why usually you need to hire on board and keep running those new hires in the company pretty fast. That's why.
So obviously, it's a quite a broad term when we say high performing. That brief
Yeah.
explanation kind of is, is one explanation. There's a lot of different variants of what someone else would understand. But what, in your opinion, what do you see the core pillars of building such a team? If
Mhm.
we break down those elements.
Well, you have to have an administrative rule set that is pretty clear, so they know what they need to
Hmm.
do, both to be successful, to operate in a way that it doesn't create hassle for them and for the people around them. You have to have a series of personalities that come along
Hmm.
well, because the stress is going to be high. So they have to at least respect themselves, if not better than that, and they obviously have to deliver.
Yeah.
I think the three parts: the admin part, the coming along part, and the delivery part, are the three most important.
Well, let's break it down. Let's go through the specifics of it. So starting at the kind of
So,
administrative setup stage.
sure.
So what is the difficulty, first of all, when we talk about kind of the administrative part? And then we'll go into how can we actually go out and do this ourselves. But what should we be
Yeah, but
mindful of?
you should be mindful that they are going to be under a lot of stress, and they're going to have to do a lot of things at the same time. And being stress resilient is not for everyone, so you have to make things as easier for them as it can be possible. So you have to come with a series of fundamentals from the very beginning that allow the people to work on the same framework, whether it is how a contract is created or requested, how a position is created or requested in your ATS, whom do you have to ask for feedback, who has to approve that feedback, who has to approve the offer, how the offer approval is done, what are the rituals of the
Mm,
team. Like, do we do stand-ups, do we do yearly reviews, do we do every 6 month reviews? So people have a series of timelines, deadlines, frames that they can operate within. So when things go nuts, they don't go nuts. They know what to do in each time, and it is complicated. It is complicated in two parts. One, the complicated first part is to set this up, because usually it's not only you; it's more people around in the business. It can be HR generalists, it can be hiring managers, it can be the department sales executives, you name it. Probably they are involved at some point on that, and you have to agree with them. And then you have the other part, which is them to um, get used to, and to create these habits that for some people take more time because of other companies don't, or they are not used to, or they are reluctant to, or they want an explanation why for or what for. And yeah, that's usually the two main problems
to
here.
really
Yeah.
make sure that before we even talk about who to bring on, before we even get someone on, as much as you can, think logically through the process.
Yeah.
What would they need at what point,
You
and then
need,
create as seamless or as smooth as possible, start to finish for that person.
sure, sure. Well, you can. I believe it's more important on that level of seniority in which we are talking about talent acquisition specialists, talent
Yeah.
acquisition managers, talent recruiters, you name it. That is this position in which you have somewhere in between 1 to 5 years of experience, and you don't have a managerial role. Yes, you're looking more for someone who can get the
Mm.
job done, that building around the individual, the specific
We're getting
project. Yes.
executors into the role.
Obviously, you have to have some. Yeah, you have to have some lead hand here. You have to be a bit flexible. Rules out there, but they have to bend to certain extent. But yes, I believe that the company, the procedure, and the standard, it's the principal part. Then comes the individual. Then there might come an individual that change your way of seeing things or how you do things, and that's absolutely fine. But It's rare, and they have to
So
show
be
up.
flexible once we get people there, but give them structure that they can slot in and start delivering. We will talk about.
Sure, you can create a structure. Yeah, you can create a structure, but then when you put it in
It might not work.
place, might not be the right one. You also have to understand that, and you also have to see. You have to leave egos aside and understand that sometimes things don't work, and sometimes you have to be a bit tougher and understand that things that you actually need to work. Like, if this is my recruitment process, I really need my recruitment process to work, because otherwise I don't have data to show my executives, and I can reference that you are doing a good job based on data, for example. Yeah.
So let's say I'm setting up a team, right? Just got appointed head of talent acquisition. Great job to me, well done. Thanks. We're working hard for it. But I want to build a high performing team in the future. As you know, of course, that's the aim, right? We want to get there, but as you say, it takes time. What is the absolute non-negotiables I should be doing in my setup stage? I know, because you've just mentioned quite a lot, right? And everyone's going to be sitting there trying to scribble it down really quickly to work out what did you say. But take it piece by piece. Day one, this is what I should be doing to make the team as successful as I possibly can from a structural perspective.
Well, they want look on what they have done so far. If there is, I mean, if you come to a new, there's never a new company. There's never an empty field, I believe. So look at what they did. And my fundamental part from there is like, you build a recruitment process that works for everyone. Because the moment you have the recruitment process defined in terms of how do you call every stage, where every stage goes, who takes part in every stage, what kind of information or feedback do they have to fill in every stage, you have most of the job done. Or at least you can start rolling. Because people will have a framework in which they can work. They know what comes next and what they can do. And yeah, I believe that's the main number one.
Standardize it as much as we can.
You call every step the same way. Yeah, standardize. Call it the same in every country that you're operating. Don't be narrow-minded. You will need to make additional steps that you might not want, and you will need to find a way that they fall align in a certain series of events. But yeah, that's.
I guess it also makes it easier. Let's say the team expands quickly, and that's what we're hoping is going to happen. And you go from hiring, say, in Berlin, and now you need to go hire in Paris. If you've got that process in place, there's just subtle differences you might need to do based on the local market, instead of having to recreate everything and kind of go through the whole process again.
It really is. It truly is. There's two things there. If you work in a big city like Berlin, Paris, London, things tend to be called the same. Even if they are not called the same way, they tend to work the same way. So a screening call is a screening call. You can call it an acquisition interview. You can call it recruiter screening. It doesn't matter. It's the same. It reflects the same. And when you have that in place and you are expanding into other places, or you have operations in other places, and you have to put it in place, what you have created, and it really is way easier. I have seen it here in Lovehoney Group that was one of that was probably task number one. I would say call things by the same name. I think I called that project like we speak the same language.
It's interesting because in development, let's take software development. I know you've done it a bit in the past as well, so we can speak this lingo. But when you work with software development, they have standardized, acronyms. They have standardized conversations. It doesn't matter if you're from the US or from India. It's you talk the same. Where obviously in recruitment, I do find it's mad. Internal, external, country, industry. Everyone has their own different kind of uniqueness, or try to be unique, where it makes it more challenging when somebody's coming on board.
It's a problem.
Yeah.
It's a problem, and it's a problem. People tend to think that it's a problem of 2 seconds, but it's 2 seconds every minute. You know what I mean? So it's 2 seconds. You speak with someone who is not in your same place. You have to tell them what it means. You have to tell them what you're doing. That you have to put it on written 5-6 times. No, it doesn't really work. For me, it does.
So getting the process is one part of that setup. The second part of that setup is getting the people. And that's obviously the bigger challenge, is how do we determine who is going to be that high performer, who's, we want to get as many A stars as we can, exactly. So, I mean,
you never know.
What can we do to if there is anything that you kind of identified to determine who could be or who could not be quicker than not.
It depends on the requirements of you having for your job, and it depends on the kind of
Mhm.
corporation that you're working for. If you remember a couple of years ago, getting a recruiter in place was probably the toughest
Yeah.
thing that anyone could do. So if you keep people and places that got their minds in the thinking of, yeah, they have to have 5 years of experience, they have to have speaking with executives, they had to have la la la, it didn't work. So my point of view was that, so yes, the not the most experienced, no, for me. I mean, I don't want someone who's looking for there's two paths here. So there's people you speak with and they tell you, yeah, I want to do this job, I'm 200% in, or I just have like 1 year of experience, and for me this is an development because it's a larger company, or I'm super happy because I'm changing sector and I never did that, and so on. That usually are the ones who
Mhm.
fly. And then you have the other people who has been doing the same job, call it recruiter, senior talent acquisition manager, and they want something else. They want to be involved in projects, they want to be involved in another kind of things, and that's a more difficult job to find for them. It can be very useful in peace times, let's call it, but if you are trying to get a lot of targets done, and the way it's going to be like a mental fracture there, you're trying to get results and they are trying to do results plus something else. So yeah, I think that's more complicated. It depends a lot of the time that your company
Yeah.
is having, but yeah, I would say that if you're looking for someone who wants to do these kind of things, someone with energy, doesn't matter age. I have seen people in their 50s, I've seen people in their 20s, and you have two areas here and they have done exceptionally well. But yeah, that they have the energy, that they are not telephone shy. I believe that's one of the problems of some people when they're a bit too young or too junior, that they are a bit telephone shy. There's this kind of I'm gonna send an email.
Yeah,
At
on the
some point you
phone.
have to speak with
I
the
think
people.
it's I
Yeah,
love what I'm
yeah, yeah,
hearing
yeah.
because it
And
basically it kind of boils down to that there's no one size fits all to say that you fit in. You're always going to be a high performer because you could be in team A, but in team B, it just might not click. And I think that kind of
yeah,
comes down to where's your team
yeah.
today? What values do you have as a team? What do you see missing that, skills wise to kind of really boost and then
Okay.
nurturing that
Yeah.
over the long period of time, especially as you say, someone could be 20 years old, they could be 60 years old, they could still perform. Yeah, absolutely.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It helps you. It helps for things to go faster if they adapt quickly to your framework. If they don't want to do their own thing, it's usually better. If you have a larger team and if you have or a set of
Yeah.
teams, that's way better. You have a company with this short, I don't know, like you have 2 3 recruiters. Yeah, I mean, then that kind of case, like you have an individual thinker and they wants to do things by its own. Yeah, but I think at the end it crashes at some point. Even from the minimal things, like someone, you have 3 people or so, and they don't have a clear path or set of structure, and like one is doing one kind of job ad, another one is doing a different kind of job ad. Then you go online and it's
Yeah.
like, what's this? Like, it's not serious, or they want to do, I don't know, an offer template this way, another one doesn't want to do
Yeah,
it
it's
an
just
offer.
about
Yeah, I know.
getting
I
everything from
think I think
one
you have to be.
unified company process. I mean, I'm super process driven. I love a document, me.
Yeah, I do.
My team will tell you that one, but I think ultimately,
It's not for
yeah, you're
everyone.
right. It's not for everyone, and that's absolutely fine. But those who, like myself, love a bit of structure, love a document, I think it just makes life easier for myself, and then it's always there.
Look, I remember an interview we had for a candidate for one of my teams back in the end of 2020, and all the people liked that person on a personal level. They thought that it was a good connection. We have no doubt that she could do the recruitment, but I did the last round, and I asked her straight up, like, how good are you with that administrative tasks? and this person said to me, well, I work 9 to 5 and I don't have time for that. I need to screen candidates and call candidates. Like, yeah. You know why? And I will tell you why. Because for them, for more people, it will say like, yeah, I did my job and it's done. And for me, it will be like, yeah, I'm going to have to come later. I'm going to have to fix that, or someone else is going to have to come and fix that. So it's going to be 2 hours more of work for someone else. So
What
yeah, no,
mistakes
that's
have
a
you
big one.
seen, along the way around kind of that setup process, either through when you joined Lovehoney or, because obviously when you joined, they were
Yeah.
already an established company, right? But all from kind of past experiences.
Yeah, but well, in Lovehoney it was it was a merger of different companies, so it was very different ways of working in one place or another. So I think the major differences were that to trying to align everything into one kind of setup, and discussing with local management and changing mindsets about how things are done or handled in one or the other way. I think yeah, that was one of the first things that we encounter, and I think at this point it's pretty much sorted to some extent.
So then the second pillar that you
Yeah.
mentioned obviously is around the actual performance. We've got our structure, we've
Uh-huh.
looked at who we're bringing on board, and now we actually want to look at the performance of that team.
Hmm.
So how would we break that down?
There are two components. One is subjective and another one is subjective. Subjective
Hmm.
part, I would say, is the easiest one, but it is not. So it's a matter of how you see the dynamics of the team, how people is coming along, how levels of frustration are expressed within the team meetings or not, or it's just a pure joy and all the people is coming along, how other people is telling you how things are going or how did they find communication with one or another individual. And honestly speaking, tends to fit what you see or what you are inferring with what is actually happening, unless you are very naive and you think that no, and the people is having plots or things like that, which is not the case. So that's one part, the subjective part, and there's a subjective part that comes into hiring managers and to stakeholders, and they will tell you straight up if things are going good or bad.
Hmm.
I do take that one with a pinch of salt, if you ask me. Sometimes little mistakes are taken like criminal acts, and sometimes other not. So you have to listen, you have to review, you have to discuss if this claim has been uh, right, or if it's something that it has to be improved or not, or it's just or you have to protect your team member because it's unfair how they are uh, evaluating them. Then another part is the objective. Another part is the objective one, which comes about figures and delivery. So I like to stress again the importance of having a recruitment process from the very beginning that runs, because once you have the recruitment process running and people is adhere to that, and they are using the steps properly and they are using the tools properly, then you can easily get figures about it. And you can
Yeah.
see pretty quickly how not only how they are hiring, because it's important, it's definitive, and it tells you a lot, but it's not the 100%. It says the 60% of that, but there's another 40% that comes of lack, about hiring managers presenting a qualified offer, about competition in the market, about us maybe not qualifying properly the candidate was actually better, we were lower on the expectations. Things like that play a role, or just unfortunate situations for candidates, like they don't want to relocate, their relative pass away, you name it, we probably have seen it. And I think that's about it. But you can see through the recruitment process how the pipeline is developing. You can see conversion rates, you can see withdrawal reasons, you can see rejection reasons, time of reaction, if people is actually reviewing their pipeline on a daily basis, 2 daily basis, or they just letting it the moment they find someone and just carry on. But I think that's the objective part, and then the objective part has to be taken with care, because there are two paths here that I have seen. One is the kind of person who calls 2 people and hires one, and the kind of person who calls 200 and hires one. And at the end of the day, they did the same amount of time, and they invested the same amount of time in the working days, and it's absolutely fine. But you need to understand how that works. Yeah.
I think there's also a fine line between we need the data, of course we do. Data is, without data we can't analyze properly, we can't adjust, and we can't, make our teams perform better. But there is also an element of being too data heavy, I've found, and then it's all about the numbers and only about the numbers, and then subjectivity kind of gets lost a little bit.
There are many views on that I have seen. One is the rational one, which is mine, but I'm calling the rational one, which is like, I want the data, I want to see it. I'm not gonna use it against you, but I'm gonna use it to protect you and educate you. And there is the other one, which is like, I want to see the figures, and this is 2, and the other one is 4, so it's lower, so it doesn't work for me. And then it's the other one that I also have seen, which is, yeah, we are very data driven, we have some graphics. They never touch it on Excel. So yeah, that doesn't work either.
I think if you're using data to educate, yeah, fair enough. But if you're using data to shun someone, and
I don't believe it works.
No, absolutely. But you do need, I do agree, you need to have those processes in place to find those data points. But there is so many data points in recruitment you can talk about. CV to interview, conversion rates on interviews, acceptance rates, time to hire. There is so many. We've actually gone out our way to try and create we've created a white paper to produce as many ones that we feel are important. But I'm curious, what do you think? We'll break it down. We'll bring it back to the former example. I've still got my job as head of talent acquisition.
Yeah.
So I have no no metrics at the moment in my team. What would you say is the most important that I set up first, and then what would you say I need to have overall as a consistent?
The offer conversion. The offer conversion for me is the number one, because offer conversion, especially if you have offer conversion and withdrawal reasons or rejection reasons. If you have those 3, then you can see how many people is accepting your offers, and maybe you find that 90% of the people is accepting your offers, which is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I will raise an exclamation mark, like, maybe you are not calling enough people, because you probably could be filling more positions if you are trying a bit more, random candidates that you find like maybes can work too. And withdrawal and rejection reasons, because you can find out if you don't have that 80% conversion rate for offer to hire, but if you have a 35, then you can find out what is missing here. And it can be, and then you can go to withdrawal reasons, and then you see that 95% of your offers are withdrawn by salary reasons.
Yeah. Then that's
a different conversation.
Yeah, the data's there, it screams in your face what you need to discuss as a company.
And then you go to the next one. It's like, then you also maybe are compiling information about salary expectations.
Yeah.
And then you can check the salary expectations, and then you can compare against the withdrawal reasons. And then you can compare it against your budget or your salary range for that position. And then you say like, well, we are like 50% below what the market is asking us for. So this is just a waste of time. So if you want to hire people, you need to start thinking, how much money are you losing for not having that person in place, and start thinking about raising the salaries. But that was more a conversation 2021. That things don't happen anymore.
You think should drive that conversation? So now I've changed jobs again, by the way. I keep with myself the example. I now work for you. I've been employed by Lovehoney now.
Okay.
You're head of talent acquisition. I'm in your team. I've spot the data. Do you expect me to drive that to you and say, look, we need to be making this change, or do you think that falls on the head of the team?
I expect you to raise a hand and tell me like there's something off, and I will be the one looking into that. Yeah.
And then you would be the person driving.
If you call, if you as an employee, it never happened to me so far. I have seen some people that maybe it's off. I check the numbers, I don't have it clear and so on. But if you do that, you will be an excellent employee. To be honest, it will be like, you come with the problem, you come with the solution. That's literally what all the people is asking for.
Yeah.
But if you come at least with the problem and some sort of intuition about what is actually the solution, then that's good, because I can look into that, and I'm the one who's going to be reviewing and telling you, okay, I've seen that, I can see the problem, I'm going to speak with the people who is responsible for that, and we're going to try to do something about it, because I understand your frustration not getting this right. Yeah.
I'm going to throw out a massive unpopular opinion right now, and this might backfire on me because I deal a lot with talent acquisition teams. Sorry, I think there's an element of trepidation, uncertainty as to what they can or cannot bring up based on data. So an example, again, I love examples, clearly. So everything you've just said, we do, right? So if I'm not filling a position as an external partner, instead of just saying, hey, Jamie, I can't find this person, we need to raise the salary, I will come back to you with data and say, this is how many people have approached, conversation, all what you've just said there, and I give you the data.
Yeah.
I would then expect you to be the voice of reason to the hires that be to say, look, this is the data. And I've done it many, 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 many times. I would say probably 90% of people are thankful. And they say, thanks so much for that. You know, we're happy we've seen the data.
Nothing happened?
Of that 90%, less than half probably make any meaningful change. And then it becomes that issue of what are you doing? What are you expecting? Are you concerned about going to your CFO, your CEO, your CTO about the market, or are you concerned that you're not sure how to raise it? So bring it back into the internal team as an individual contributor. If they're seeing and spotting this trend, but their manager isn't making any adjustments to it, or they can't see any meaningful change, what could they do in that scenario? Because I guarantee a lot of people probably are seeing things like this and nothing is drastically changing.
This example I'm telling you is actually something that happened and I did. So I know that for a fact. I don't know what other people do, and I can understand that maybe some people say, thank you very much for this. But yeah, I will keep it here in my folder that I will never look at.
It's mental.
Yeah, I think it's a mistake. I understand that some people maybe feel more comfortable just letting things go, but yeah, it's not my way of thinking. I will tackle the problem, because my way of seeing management, it's that you are the one who cleans the way for people to pass. So you have to be the one who's there for having the way, and they are the ones who have to walk through that way the most comfortable possible. And yeah, that's part of the thing. If you have a position that is not being hired for a certain amount of reasons, and you have the data. The other thing is that you don't have the data. You are just guessing. If you are just guessing that, okay, fair enough. That's a complicated topic to put in front of someone. But if you have the data and you have the rationality behind, you have to.
Yeah, that's what I've always assumed as well.
I've never seen anyone in any executive position or any kind of position of management that gets disappointed if they see some reliable data about something that is a problem for them. I'll not tell you that they will do something, but at least they will tell you why they cannot do something. They will tell you, look, I don't have more budget, or you are giving me the overqualified candidates, or look lower, or we just wait and that's fine and don't worry. That okay, but yeah, no, I don't see that.
Yes, that also segues back to the high performance team component, and to say like the other end of the performance of the team is also driven by you as their leader as well, and what you're removing from their mental capacity to focus on other tasks. You know, they're sitting there thinking, why is leadership not listening to the data? Why are they not voicing, or they're not communicating back to me? Then that's just mental capacity wasted, where they could be focusing back on, okay, who do I need to find? How do I need to find that person? Or how do we need to increase this pipeline?
Looking at it right now, like if I can automate something, I will do it. I here in Lovehoney, I have automated note taking for interviews. It's saving. I will not tell you how many hours per week. It can be unrealistic. How many hours just not to take notes and have them all drafted there with artificial intelligence.
What tool do you use? Just curiosity.
MetaView. Yeah, we're using MetaView from the very beginning. The day I saw it, I purchased it. They didn't even have a platform to pay, literally, and I was already using it. So That's already done. Things that I can do through my ATS that pass on to my HR generalist. Literally right now, I'm implementing something that was not done before, which is creating contracts in our
Mhm.
ATS, integrating with DocuSign, passing them onto our HRIS. That's long. It's maybe 2 hours or 3 hours of these people time
Yeah.
a week, and maybe it's 3 hours of my time to fix this up. And you see, it's these kind of things that save time for people. So yeah, automation or discussions about figures or things that make life easier for people. Oh, for
Yeah,
sure.
it's just,
You
as you
know,
say,
like,
removing as many of these blockers just to allow your team to focus on
yeah,
what their task at hand is, and it comes back to that performance aspect, which then segues quite nicely
yeah,
into
yeah,
results, which, you know, let's be honest, and again, it comes back down to talent acquisition. I think there's a lot of projects people focus on, but
yeah.
our job at the end of the day is getting the best people for that job. The best doesn't need
It truly
doesn't need
is.
to be the most experienced, of course. We've established that, but who is right for that job at that time in that company? Period. So
It truly is. It truly is. And you have to have the devotion for that. This is what I mentioned before when we were talking about who is the right person for the job. And it's like, well, you have the one who's super motivated about the actual job, and the one who is super motivated about doing another gig
yeah,
at the same time. And to do another gig, you have to have a certain level of delivery already. And if not, yeah, I mean, at the end, it will come at some point. Some months later, this conversation about what kind of role we can offer this person will come along.
Mhm.
That's for
How
sure.
do you maintain the high performance team then? You know, you've got the setup, you feel like you've got the right people in place, you're removing these blockers, you're checking your KPIs or your OKRs, and you know what's happening.
Yeah,
It all looks good, but then very quickly something goes wrong. You know, you lose funding as a company. One of your employees hires who's best
yeah,
friends, leaves who's best friends with somebody else in the team. You know, things just happen. So how can we maintain that
yeah.
performance aspect?
It's a very difficult task, and sometimes you even have to think on
Mm.
restructuring. But from my point of view, if that happens, like you are in the situation that you were mentioned before, that it had happened for the past year to a large number of businesses, and you have to think pretty quickly on restructuring in the basis of how many hires do I need for the business, who can do that hires, and who can do something else that is not hiring that allow us to improve in data automation processes, admin, and so on. And you will find some people, and then you will find other people who is not good for the job, and you will need to see. You can accommodate in other areas of the business. You can try to carry on. What I would not recommend is to carry on with the idea that things will improve, because it becomes
Mm.
exasperating. Yes, people thinking like they have nothing to do. It's the same music all the time. I have nothing to do. 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 It reminds me. I think that someone said to me, like, it's not like you don't have anything to do. It's that you don't want to do what you have in front of you. Which is you find boring the things that you have to do. But yeah, I think that's the issue. This heartbreak, and then what you're gonna do with the people you have to think it clearly, and you have to do one thing one time and settle it, and not keep thinking on what is going to happen next, or in 1 year, or let's do this now and let's see what happens next.
Like it.
Sometimes it's not
Yeah, I
possible.
mean, I think, you know, again, come back to the definition you've given around high performance teams. You know, some other person will listen and say, actually, this is my perception of it. And I mean, there's whole podcasts, ironic high performance podcasts. It is a very good podcast, by the way. Not to randomly give them a plug, it is really good. But there are whole things around this, and you know, they get personalities on all the time who have slightly different variants, and which is that
I know high
it's a
performance
very,
too.
very good
Yeah,
podcast.
I know. Yeah, they got
They
Fernando
did
Alonso
have
not long
Fernando
ago.
Alonso
I
on, yeah.
remember.
Um,
Yeah.
great F1 driver. Anyways, beside the point that he's driving now for the wrong team, but regardless, I think good takeaways from this, and you know, as we're going through it, is that it's not just an IC's responsibility, it's not just a head of responsibility, it's a collective responsibility to build that team. You know, your role as head of, or you know, lead on that team is to help create the processes, to remove the structures. But then it's my job as the IC to come in and deliver and voice if there's issues along the way. And, it's that conjunction and partnership with each other to say, are we being as productive? Are we delivering as best as we can? And if not, how do we improve it?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I do believe so. Yeah, and there are hard times. It's not all. There's one thing when you are on this high performance path, which is you are producing and producing, and then you get back for your, usually is rewarded immediately because they want to keep the wheel spinning, let's put it that way. So you do good, and then you get more, and then you get more, and then you get more, and when that point of, hey, here, we're stopping here. And then you also have to be um, pretty strong when it comes about where the cut has to be done. And I have not seen that sometimes. And you also have to consider sometimes, even if you are the problem, which is also a thing that could happen if your figure is the right one for that time in that setup. So yeah, that can happen, and that's not something that other people will do, to be
Well,
honest.
Jamie, I really appreciate you spending time and giving us your insights, and thank you so much for joining and, like I said, participating on this. So yeah, there's a lot to unpack. There's a lot for someone to learn from. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much, Ian.